Hey, this is Lee with Cyber Misfits, coming back at you again from Oahu, and that is with the great islands of Hawaii.
And from Denver, Colorado, you got me here, Chance. Hey guys.
All right, let's get started. There's a lot of talk in the news about artificial intelligence. Like the Alexa devices, the Google, your phones, so soon,
hmm
your cars. So, how do you feel about artificial intelligence and these devices that are in your homes that can run like simple commands for you? So, what are your initial thoughts on that?
my initial thoughts are there are clear pros and there are clear cons to this type of technology. It, very similar to some of our previous conversations on smart cars and driverless cars rather. There are clear pros to something like that. Someone incapable of driving and this vehicle transporting this person to where they need to go. But also, again, the cons being that these are GPS signals going back and forth from satellites back to this particular device. Signals that are easily hackable. Uh, so just like just very similar to this type of technology with the listening devices and the artificial intelligence. I think that initially there are pros and there are cons to address for sure. What about you?
So, so let's talk about this. I do feel like artificial intelligence is good, and there are some bad. So first, I want to talk about some of the good things about artificial intelligence, especially with some of these devices that are in your home. So let's say like the Alexa or Google, you could tell it to run simple functions around the house, such as, hey, can you turn on the lights? Can you raise the temperature in the house by so many degrees, or can you lower it by so many degrees? Can you, do this for me? So for somebody who is severely handicapped or disabled, this can benefit them greatly. On the other hand, it's kind of nerve-wracking to have a device in your home that's always listening, not just waiting for the command to kind of start recording, but it's always listening, waiting to hear that command. So what if there is an instance that it just randomly records your conversation, and there's some kind of blurb, not on your end, but on the manufacturer's end. So there's this story in Portland, issued by a Portland radio station. This couple, they actually had a portion of their private conversation recorded, and their device, their Alexa device, sent it to another person on their contact list. I don't know the contents of their discussion, but that is a blatant invasion of privacy right there. So basically, a portion of their conversation, it could have been anybody. It just randomly, possibly records, and you don't know about it until something happens. But the stuff is saved in an external database by the manufacturer, Amazon or Google, and they just hold this information there. So I feel like, well, it is invasion of privacy for the most part, because you didn't give consent to randomly record your conversations during a day. I'm not certain if there's some kind of disclaimer out there for them stating, hey, we may randomly record your conversations and save it in our database without your knowledge. Click here to consent. I doubt it. And then also with all these new laws in place, which you can talk about for the next podcast, especially the European law, the GDPR, we can go into more detail about that at our next podcast. But so it's clearly an invasion of privacy sometimes with some of these devices.
hmm I personally have not used some of these particular AI. So, and as much faith as I have in the people, and I do love the people, I must recognize that there is many many times people, they'll get a device and there's like pages and pages and pages of, disclaimer information that people,
Yeah.
unfortunately don't actually read through. So I think if a lot of people actually read through some of this stuff, they will actually be aware of exactly, at least a fraction of what data they're actually giving up. Which again, they can easily go into their devices, and I'm sure they have the ability to at least limit, some of their information that they just so freely give, most of the time. You know, uh, you mentioned that, one of the pros of this type of technology would be for, to assist for assisting people, such as disabled people, or even just really anyone, anyone who needs a hand, anyone who feels
Yeah.
overwhelmed and just needs, so again, as far as the practical implications of this, really is awesome, actually helping people out. But again, it's people need to be aware of what they're giving up for that assistance, and you're essentially giving up your privacy. You know, just like you
So,
you stated, you have these.
what about criminal investigations? Do
Mm,
they have like the right to subpoena recordings that you didn't consent for? So let's say Alexa recorded accidentally 2 weeks of conversations that you didn't want it to record, like in your household, and then there is a small portion within those, that time frame that you do have consented recordings. So, do you think let's say, during an event of a criminal investigation, that law enforcement have the right to subpoena that non-consented recordings that occurred in your home?
what's incredible is that this is a topic of discussion now, to where 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, it just would have been totally unheard of, as far
Right.
as another avenue for law enforcement to use, as far as legal criminal litigation against someone. But I personally don't think so. I don't think that they should have the ability to pull that type of information. And as far as, if there was a line that needed to be drawn, I think that would be the line that needed to be drawn. Because again, that person could choose to not use those devices, and again, to not give that particular avenue. But we are in a we're in an unprecedented time right now, I believe, in the sense of all of these smart devices, and like, you yourself, your family, your friends, your coworkers, like, how many people do you know who have a smartphone? A better question would be, how many
Everybody.
people do you know that don't have a smartphone? you know
Yeah.
but and again, so we have these smartphones, these smart devices that are constantly listening to those trigger words. So, we're in a world to where, everything is connected. Globalization has really taken effect, and everything truly is connected. Those third party types of just in general devices, or service providers, when we type a number into our phone, or when we search something in the internet and we're not using a VPN, which everyone should be using a
Yeah.
VPN for one. Just want to throw that out there. But also, when we're using our browsers, is our service providers not privy to that information? And with changes in current laws, just allowing these service providers to have more free reign as far as using our information as bargaining chips and products, and selling our information just for
Yeah.
profit. I think we're definitely in a time now to where we need to really reevaluate what we perceive as privacy. Because if we have a smartphone in our rooms, if we have Alexa and the echoes in our rooms, our most intimate areas of our homes, constantly listening, what is privacy? We have to really,
Yeah.
recognize the illusion at that point. So So yeah, I
Mm.
definitely see benefits with it, but again, there are clear pros. So people need to really just evaluate, what they feel comfortable with sacrificing for the most part.
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about privacy, and during a short period of my career, I spent dealing with privacy, so dealing with some of the privacy laws, and a lot of the privacy laws that we have deals with um, documents and papers and people's
Hmm.
information. Um, there's nothing really to talk about artificial intelligence. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And as far as like what these organizations are capable of storing and taking away from you, it doesn't really talk about anything like that. So it'd be very interesting to see as far as like with this new generation coming up, because right now we have I guess the old heads, like in office, and they're not really too familiar about like how some of the stuff works. You know what I mean? I know
You're
just
actually right.
yeah, like a little cyber conversation. So when Mark Zuckerberg went up to
Hmm.
Congress to kind of talk about like the issues that are going on Facebook, you can
Hmm.
tell from hearing what they were saying, the congressman, and also like watching them, that they have no idea how the internet even works. But
You're absolutely right. It
nowadays,
was it was
yeah,
it was comical
it was
actually
a
to watch.
it was a circus show. But nowadays, you have like STEM being implemented in the classrooms. Kids are being exposed to technology at an earlier age. My son can do nearly almost as much stuff as I can do now. So it'll be interesting to see how as time progresses, how the newer generation, the generation that were born into this technology, how they can change the laws, and how they can like make some of these changes that the individuals that are in office now they cannot and have not. So it'd be kind of interesting to see that. So, on the topic still of artificial intelligence, so how do you feel about Google's new technology, their advancements as far as like having their artificial intelligence software to conduct certain things on your behalf? Let's say making appointments or scheduling things for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, have you have you had the opportunity to watch the Google Assistant demonstration to where the assistant actually scheduled a hair appointment?
Yes, I did. I
Okay,
did.
so
Sound like a
so
real person.
that yeah, it for everyone who has not seen it, I vastly recommend it. It's pretty incredible, and yeah, it's Google's assistant calling a hair salon, scheduling an appointment, checking the calendar to verify that the suggested time would actually work for
And
the particular
negotiating.
person, and
Yep, negotiate
negotiating.
at certain times. So I think
And
it's
actually
crazy.
with real-time responses,
Yep.
like whims, and it's very, very fascinating. It's very interesting. I imagine to
So
myself if at my occupation, if someone were to call me and and I'm talking to something, or what I perceive as someone, and we are on the phone for a 10-minute conversation, and I get off the phone, and I made a deal with this particular person, and it turns out that it's an actual like Google Assistant.
yeah.
So
So another issue is Google, they don't have it to where it's a disclaimer. So they don't
mhm.
have it to where at the initial point of the phone call being, the person answers the phone. It doesn't say, "Hey, this is the Google Assistant, whatever you want to call it, acting on behalf of this person." And then going to their little spill. That's not there, and that to me is scary. And I think that Google may be opening up for, I guess, further litigation in the future.
Mhm.
So then also another thing is during that video, uh, when Google was introducing their new artificial intelligence, it
Mhm.
was quick real-time responses. It was coming. It was coming. So those are all
Oh,
programmed,
extremely.
right? So what
Hmm.
if the individual on the other end says something that's not in their program? You know what I'm saying? And if they're not programmed to have a response for this, what is their default? Like, what would it default and say? What if you offend the other person? You know, so again, it doesn't have that disclaimer out at first that it's a machine acting on behalf of this person, or it's artificial intelligence acting on behalf of that person. So, you know, what is the program response for something that is not programmed? You know what I mean? Like, what if it says, hey, I want to make a hair appointment for this day, and they say something else? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
how would it automatically respond? And that to me is kind of scary.
Hmm.
More so, also, it will have to have access to all aspects of your phone in order for this thing to work properly. You know that?
So I work with this particular program that uses, predictive, suggestive type so it just takes a bunch of big data and it crunches that data into predictive solutions, suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
So, so with that said, the fact that uh, this Google Assistant is is capable and at a point at least of comfortably, engaging in negotiations with this hair salon
Yeah.
uh, personnel. I can only imagine that perhaps it's using that type of predictive type software as well, to a certain degree, because, the fact that, they're advertising this product in a sense of being essentially independent, to complete a task in its entirety, to include real-time negotiations. I can only imagine they're using that. So with that said, just like you alluded to, this program would need access to every facet of your life, your
Exactly.
calendars, your reminders, your notes,
Yep.
your contacts, social media platforms, everything. And potential bank information, so much data. So I think,
Yeah, you know what? I
you
didn't
know
think about that, because what if
oh
they say you
yeah,
have to prepay to secure your spot?
you're right. You're absolutely right. So it seems like they are designing this to, again, to have as much data on you as possible in order to predict what it believes you might do or what you might say. So
Oh,
with that
wow.
said, this
Yeah.
this program, it sounds like it's really acting on the behalf of that person. So you mentioned something earlier in regards to, what if this AI did something, in contradiction, or offended someone, or made contractual agreements with someone, legal agreements, and let's just say the person, didn't agree with that, and
Yeah.
finds out from like a letter or a phone call of something that, again, they they didn't fully understand or weren't aware of. So who would be at fault there? You know,
So
who
another thing
would be at
also,
fault? Would the person be at fault?
well, I don't know, because Google don't have it to where they put that disclaimer out at first that it's a machine.
Mm,
So initially, like, the whoever the person is will be at fault, because to the other person on the other end, they're talking to that person or someone who's acting on their behalf. At least with
mhm,
that disclaimer, you can put that clear separation. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Between the software and you. So yes, it's acting on my behalf, but it is still not me. And then it's also saying that if you want further information or further anything, just make sure you contact the person. So also, with some of these transactions, right? So I'm in my house and I tell Google, hey, can you make a hair appointment for me? Or hey, can you contact my mom and try to, let's say, set up a dinner date or something. It's to my acknowledgement that they might try to record that, possibly in order for them to make their stuff better, because
I
they're not,
see.
I don't think they're calling from your phone, or maybe they do call from your phone, but you're still like a third party doing this. So
Mm-hmm.
is they have contact to your phone as far as making phone conversations. So how do we know that that phone conversation that they're making with that other person isn't recorded also? So that's something that people should really think about. And I'm gonna put up a real world example, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my older sister, uh, you know, she has a Google Voice in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's set up, to work with her voice, and then her son also can access it too, right? So when he says his stuff, it goes to his information, which is kind of cool, unless your little sister sounds just like you.
Mm.
So I was able to activate her Google and put stuff on her shopping list, um, and I guess act as her. So let's think about that. So let's say, she
Well,
has her little Google Assistant set up, and I just start randomly saying stuff. Or you're just having a random conversation, and you're like, man, I want to tell my Google to do this for me, and then it does it. But yeah, so what about that? Like two people sharing a similar voice, and you tell your little Google voice box, hey, do this for me. You know?
so initially, I would say in that particular example, I would say it works out well in your favor because you get a lot of free grocery from her
Yeah.
Google Assistant.
Yeah, let me just
but
tell I'll be at her house this weekend, so let me make sure she put this on her grocery list. So
so I'm gonna send you a list, to so you can just add to that if
yeah.
she if her Google Assistant is covering it,
Party at
But in
her
all
house.
reality, though,
Uh-huh.
but in all reality, though, again, that goes back to what we are saying that there are clear inherent pros and clear inherent cons to something like this.
Yeah.
So something like Google Assistant, to where, and it's not something, so what you gave was a minor example, of the consequences of something like that, like
Yeah.
she just gets charged for the stuff that you ordered, and the Google Assistant registered your voice as her. But, you could have easily said, hey, you know, Google Assistant, contact and some
Yes.
ex-boyfriend or something like that, and schedule a date. You could really have messed
Yes.
with her
Yeah,
there.
I mean,
So
there's a
you know
lot of stuff, and then also, for instance, so let's say you have the Google Voice app on your phone, you know, um,
mhm.
and you leave your phone out. I have access now to your phone, and I just so happen to, hack your phone and then get into your Google Voice Assistant. I can, pretty much do a lot of stuff in there. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, or Google can get hacked because anybody can get hacked nowadays.
You're right.
And now all of a sudden, like all these numbers are exposed, and they have access to your phone. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's just, it's so many pros and cons and pros and cons. Like, do we take that risk to make our life simpler and easier, or do we not? But is that a question for us to make, or is the real question is, hey company, you're going to create this, you are going to say, hey, this is the new standard in technology, so you can do all this stuff by your voice, and we'll take care of it for you. Shouldn't they be required to take care of their stuff, or let people know exactly how it functions? I mean, not so much to the points where it's like, hey, I know all the ins and outs, and I'm a find a way to break this thing, or whatever. But they should be held to a higher standard, or making sure they keep all this information safe and secure, and don't just like randomly start recording. If I'm going to make an
Mhm.
appointment for you, I'm gonna let this other person know that I am a machine. I am acting on behalf of this person, but I am a software. And for them to contact this person who I'm acting on behalf, for more information, like that stuff should be out there. you know so
You're
I,
absolutely
I
right. I
do
agree.
think, yeah, it should be like a higher priority, and higher standards placed on these organizations, because I don't want to wait until my stuff get hacked, or if something happened to my stuff, for you to say, hey, let's make a change, let's do this differently. Like, yeah, I made the example earlier about, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. Like, one
Hmm.
of the other things I'm going to talk about real quickly about that foolishness is when he was talking, he was just saying, like, we didn't really design our stuff to protect against this or that. We didn't think any of this will happen. We were just trying to, make it easier for, other people to use, our software, our stuff. We weren't thinking about the security aspect of it that much. But now that this has happened, this breach has happened, now let's do something. Like, it shouldn't be that way. And I think honestly, like the laws that we have in place, they're sorry. I'm sorry to say it, like they suck. Like they need to hold these companies and organizations more responsible for setting their stuff up. Like, there should be higher standards on the way they keep information secure, their system security plans, their business continuity plans, like all this stuff. Like, it should be like a higher standard because it do hold so many people's private information. Like, we have stuff like HIPAA in place, and the HIPAA privacy rule. Like, why don't we have something in place for these technologies? Why do we have to keep waiting for something to happen to our information to where we, the consumers, have to try to recover from it? You know what I'm saying? And then all they do is like, oh, we're sorry that this happened. We will try our hardest for it not to happen again. In the meantime, we're sorry that we screwed you. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many times do we have to listen to this stuff as consumers? So that's my biggest concern about some of this artificial intelligence, is that technology is moving too fast, like too quickly. And we're not doing the proper measures to secure that data, that information, and everything. So, it's my little rant.
Just to throw in my 2 cents behind that, I find it fascinating, and as far as uh, just as far as you think back to you talk about consumers being tired of hearing after the fact,
Yeah.
after the fact, oh, we should have done this, so we're going to do this so
Mm-hmm.
much better, but it's already too late, you know,
Yep.
and to where Facebook, is in the news for, that data breach and, everything prior, uh, before that, we can look back for the last 2 decades and give so many examples of major data breaches. Again, let's not forget, the credit bureau incident, pretty recently ago, and
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, just the numerous major breaches on even the government side, releasing uh, just social security, like just incredible
Yeah.
amounts of personal information. So it's sad to say, but I think at this point, you know, essentially everyone's information is already out in some form or, affected from,
Yes.
whatever breach over the last, again, like 2 decades. But that doesn't mean that companies shouldn't take the consumers in consideration.
Yeah.
That should be their, a major concern,
So,
for them
okay, so let's
because
talk
you want
about this, right?
consumers.
Consumers' information should be, at the heart of business. I guess a part of their mission. Let's protect our consumers' information, right? So, what if the protection against, um, any type of breaches and all that stuff, is money going into a certain aspect that nobody can visually see, So I guess what I'm getting at is so I know that a lot of companies they don't probably want to spend that extra money in the event something
Mhm.
may happen because it never happened to us. I'm not going to invest in these softwares and this type of technology to protect other people's information when I can take that same bundle of money and move it toward software design to make the functionality of my program and software much better. So it's two pots of money. I'm just going to put my money over here because this is what people see. This is what will bring me more money. This is spending money. So what can I do? Well, I'm just going to sign a document saying that, yeah, I acknowledge something may happen, but I'm willing to take the risk. So now hence comes businesses and organizations doing risk assessments. You know what I mean? Because they don't want to put the money necessarily in the areas that will kind of help the consumer out. So now they were putting it more towards software development. So what are your thoughts on that? Because so I guess that goes back into like holding the company and organizations liable. You know what I mean? I think if they start putting bigger penalties on these organizations, then I think they'll start stepping up.
I definitely think that deterrence makes for a good motivator, in at certain times. And in the case of this, I think that needs to happen. You know, just going back to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg giving his testimony, to Congress, and uh, just like we
That was like
stated,
the worst thing that
these
happened to him.
yeah, it's these people that don't understand a topic. They don't fully understand something, but they have someone who, who has created something, wide ranging, i.e., Facebook, the social platform that it is, the social giant that it is, and you have this guy who's the CEO of this large tech company, explaining the merits of, privacy and, ethics, in regards to IT and privacy. And he's explaining this to people who, again, they don't fully understand this. So unless, we have, you know, people who understand technology in a nutshell making these laws, I don't think, really anything is going to change, because they see, that they're able to actually give their input, viable input, as far as what accountabilities can those tech companies actually be, again, accounted for. And once we have established that, we can start laying out the deterrences. As far as companies, violating the 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 trust and privacy of their consumers, I wish that the deterrence would be just a lack of business. The customers would choose to, just look for alternatives other than that particular company that just released their data, that simply show that they care more for profit and just putting out the latest and, fanciest and flashiest device or product, than to, equally spend the money, to make sure that their security and their consumers' privacy is actually being well regulated and protected. But just as you stated, that's typically not the case.
Yeah, it's not, and it's just a lot of let's just throw money at the person, or let's just throw money at the situation and try to fix it. But like I said,
Let's
like
put out a few
hopefully,
commercials and apologize,
yeah,
and let's smile. Let's show a little bit
yeah,
of
let's get
PR.
the back on our side. Like we're sorry,
Showing
we messed up, but
and it seems
still
like
use our
spending money in
services.
PR, exactly. Spending money in PR is cheaper than the money that it would take to actually protect someone's privacy and maintain their customers, security. So
Yeah,
maybe that's how they seem to justify it. But again, it's, people are tired of hearing this. People are tired of seeing these data breaches one after the other. And again, I understand that there are always hackers. There are always, those black hats out, trying to get into something for whatever malicious reason. I understand that. Things
yeah,
are constantly evolving. Technology is constantly evolving. But some companies don't seem to even put in the slightest effort, to actually, to keep up with those challenges. And again, if
yeah.
you're maintaining, customers' most intimate, data, from recording devices and into people's homes, or even just social security numbers or birth dates, or, just someone's actual information. I think that, how, to me, I can't understand how that's not important enough
Yeah.
to actually,
So
put the effort and financial, uh,
something real
support.
funny. So I went to this this little shop, here in Hawaii, and I saw this really, and I'm not gonna say the store's name. So I saw this, little nice outfit that I wanted, or whatever, and they had their computer screen kind of catty cornered a little bit, so they're like ringing everything up or whatever, and I happened to notice that their operating system was Windows XP.
Hmm.
Really? So yeah, I would not be giving you my credit card information. So let me just go ahead and give you cash right now. So I mean, come
Right?
on, XP. So it's like, come on, like, do you not care about your customers? Security. So needless to say, it's only a matter of time before you see that store on the news. So it's like, come on, people, like. Really? So, oh man, I can go on with this for like hours and hours and hours.
Same.
So, Chance, as always, it's like super good talking with you. I know we always have some pretty good conversations. So I can't wait till it get to a point to where we disagree on something. I think that will be kind of something crazy, but thanks again, and thank you everybody, for tuning in, again with us. And like I said, it's me, Lee. I'm over here in Hawaii, and
Chance, representing Denver.
yeah. So make sure you also check out, the Cyber Misfits website, www.csignor.com. I also put it out there that, kind of in the future, there's going to be a members only section. So, yeah, make sure you check that out. So,
Nice.
until then, peace.
Later.